All right, everybody, what's going on? Today I have a special guest. Her name is
Faith.
Faith. So we're just going to talk a little bit about health and fitness and just kind of see where things go. But the first question that I kind of just want to talk with Faith about, just to kind of introduce herself. I want her to introduce herself and talk a little bit about how you got into the gym. So
Okay. All right. So, hi everyone. I'm Faith. Just a little bit about myself. I obviously am Hmong. Got into lifting about 6 years ago. It was actually because of James. So, if you guys don't know his story, it was actually where it all began was with my family. So Shao, my brother actually bought you your first pair of shoes. So yeah, we definitely have a long history here. So, but studied and under James, started out with the program that he wrote, and getting into the gym for me was, because I wanted to be more physical than anything, but along the lines with training and everything, I found it to be more mental strength than anything. And so that was, and still is currently, the biggest thing for me in my life. That's the most beneficial. So, but yeah, enough about me, but
just to kind of add, I'm gonna ask you a couple of questions, but so you said you got started, roughly 6 years ago, but 6 years ago was kind of like the point where you committed to more health and fitness. But back in like 2014, how did you find it, roughly 10 years ago, when you first got into the gym? How was it intimidating? How did you think about the gym? And then compared to yourself, a couple years later when you committed to yourself. So the difference between the mindset of lifting weights at the beginning of your journey back in 2014 versus where your journey is at now, starting 2016, 2017.
Okay, I think that's actually very, very interesting question. But I think in terms of before powerlifting, let's say 2014, I think a lot of it was lack of confidence, just being scared of being judged of how the way I look and my size. It's very intimidating because we all know that the gym culture is really not the most welcoming at times, but it's just also potentially lack of confidence, and that's what I really, really lacked. And but yeah, I'm just scared of being judged and being looked at weird or whatnot. But I think it's a very intimidating place because you're working amongst the strongest, like powerlifters, bodybuilders, fitness individuals. So it was very intimidating.
Yep. And then on top of that, at first, if I remember correctly, one of the things you didn't want to do was lift weights, right?
Yeah.
So from the very beginning, as a person that's getting started out in the gym, how did you find that? Like, how was that intimidating, and how did your mindset came about when you thought about, oh, I should lift weights or I should do cardio because this is what I know,
Right.
kind of a thing.
I think there is a stigma, and I think I'm guilty of that too, thinking like in terms of if I lift weights, I'm gonna look like Ronnie Coleman. You know what I mean? And as I continued, that is not the case. So I mean, if that was my goal initially, like to look like Ronnie Coleman and have big muscles and whatnot, I think I think that's just that mindset and that stigma kind of like portrayed it into the way I thought is that I didn't want to lift weights because I didn't want to look like Ronnie Coleman or Kai Green or whatever. And that is not true. So there's that stigma right there and overall mindset. So
yeah, because one of the things that I notice a lot about like when people get started, right? They would say like, yeah, I don't want to look like Arnold or I don't want to look like Ronnie Coleman. And you're literally looking at the best of the best. A guy that was born with the best genetics. They trained for like 20 plus years. They're on all kinds of drugs, all kind of doctors, and all kinds of doctors and things like that are helping them to get to that event. where they look the way that they look.
Yeah.
And then you looking from the outside in, the first thing you think of is, I'm gonna look like that if I lift weights, right?
Yeah.
So usually what I try to tell people is like, relate that to driving. You drive to work, right? Or you drive around, right? Does that mean you're gonna become a NASCAR race driver?
No.
Okay, so you cook eggs and noodles, right?
Yeah.
Does that mean you're gonna be working next to Ye Vang at Union Kitchen?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Like the kind of like what you're saying, the stigma with the gym is like, all right, if I lift weights, I become Ronnie Coleman. Yeah. But why don't people ever think, I drive to work, I'm gonna become a professional driver?
Yeah.
You know, that part doesn't make sense, right? But for the gym life, for some reason, that clicks. And one of the things that I really want to try to do is just get people to understand that, you know, you're not gonna look like Ronnie Coleman or Arnold. Like actually, let me take it back. If you could look like them, why wouldn't you? You know, that is the question, because a lot of people, they have this stigma, like, you know, that it's so easy to look like Ronnie Coleman. Well, if it is, then why don't you try it and prove me wrong, you know? Yeah. But at the end of the day, I think people's first idea when they come into the gym is, I'm gonna look big. So I guess, you know, I wanna look like all these swimsuit models, or I wanna look like these fitness model guys, you know, who look slim, look tall, look a certain way, not realizing that these guys are not healthy at all. These guys are putting on a front, right? They're starving themselves. They're focused on, all right, I want to look exactly like this. Maybe sometimes they might have to eat a certain diet. Maybe they have to avoid family. Maybe they got to avoid even their own spouses, and even have like personal issues with themselves or other people, right? Yeah. Now, if you think about that as being healthy, and the image that you see at the end is what you think is healthy, then, you know, more props to you. Yeah. But the reason why I asked Faith that question was mainly to get that stigma out of the way. There's no such thing as you're going to get as big as Ronnie Coleman. And if you could, why not, right? The idea is to be healthy. Get into the gym to lift weights, to run. None of these things matter. What matters is you getting into the gym and being healthy, and not focused on, I'm going to look like Ronnie Coleman. Or if I start jogging on the treadmill, are you going to become Usain Bolt? You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it's just kind of weird, you know, when I think about that.
Yeah. And I think that a lot of it too probably has, you know, like some social media influence, you know, to that too, and its perspective, and also education. I think that's really important too, because, you know, if you can understand and find the fundamentals and have a foundational base of understanding, I think you'll understand it more as you dive deeper into like training and lifting weights. But I mean, ultimately, if that is your goal, is to be super swole, then more to you, right?
Right. Yeah. More and more power to you.
Right. But,
yep. And then kind of going back to that. So like after that 2-year period of you thinking like this, and then you started working out, how did that change just like your mindset on lifting weights and on cardio? You know, now it's not, oh, I'm only going to do cardio because I'm going to look like this fitness model that starves herself to death, you know? Yeah. So how has that changed you after just experiencing the gym for 2 years? Not being intimidated, you know, even though you know, there's a bunch of fail videos out there. There's going to be people at the gym who's going to pick on you, look at you, judge you a certain way. How did you push through that for 2 years and then became who you became now?
You know, I think that's a very good question. So I think in terms of like having that support system, you know, like training under you, and shout out to you and Xiao and Sue and Alvin and Nucia, you know, I think, and Danny and Sunny, I think training with everyone and having that support system allowed me to kind of shift my mindset, you know what I mean? And that's something that I discovered when I went into training lifting weights a year after. Again, it was more, lifting weights was more of like I wanted to change the way how I look and to be healthy and to look like a certain way, like CrossFitters. But as time gone by, again, I can't say it enough that it was more mental than anything. And I built the confidence. I had a support system, and even the environment that, you know, we were working, or not just working out in. The individuals were so welcoming and was so nice and was so, you know, encouraging. For example, you know, when I first started, there was Tyler, Bawa, Jake, and
American
Nate.
Strength.
They were amazing
in
people
Minnesota.
and especially also James Osgood. So,
Yep.
they were very encouraging, very kind people. And I think that kind of like, I used that as leverage. That was beneficial to me, and it was less intimidating, and I was less scared. But as each weight that I make it through each month, each segment of my training, I built this confidence and strength, not just physically but mentally. I think that that has to be a big part of it, because again, main thing was the support. And one thing I want to thank you too is like going in through the beginning of training, you didn't treat me like I was a girl, if that makes sense.
Yep.
You just treated me as a person that wanted to be healthy and grow, right?
Yep.
So you didn't treat me I had no special treatment. And believe me, when you're doing 5 sets of 10s, for the first month, that's like death. But
Faith hated me the first few months. There was a couple of months where you even quit for a little bit and then came back. But generally, that's the idea.
Yeah.
People think I hate them until they realize that what I'm doing is just telling you the hard, cold truth that you need to hear. And if you can't hear what I'm saying, then you're not ready for me anyways. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So that's definitely something that, I always go back to, and humble myself a little bit. And, and I never really understood it. And you made this, I'm pretty sure you'll remember this, that you may hate me now, but you'll thank me in the end.
Yeah.
So I think, now I'm thanking you because, I've developed like certain skills that I never really anticipated or wanted for myself. So that's what powerlifting did for me. So.
Yeah, and I know Faith is saying like powerlifting, and this isn't a powerlifting thing.
Yeah.
This is, I guess you can say, her choosing the gym life, whatever comes of the gym life, or let's just say health and fitness. And the health and fitness brought her to the gym. Training at the gym caused her to be exposed to heavy lifting techniques, and those things allowed her or made her want to come back over and over and over again and be consistent. And now she is at the level, mentality, confidence wise that she has never been maybe for her entire life. And all it did was it took consistency and finding out what works for you. Now, in this particular case, it's powerlifting. For other people out there, it could be mixed martial arts. Maybe some people, they're afraid to, drive here and there with work, and maybe they're a woman too. And maybe the style of fitness that will keep them going into the gym all the time is self-defense. Learning how to defend yourself against someone who's going to attack you, especially this day and age. And then through that, you become healthier. Mentally, you become stronger. So I just want you to know that it doesn't just have to end at powerlifting. It could be ballet, it could be breakdancing, it could be MMA, whatever it is that fits your mental mold, apply that, learn it, and then apply that to every other stage in your life, not just lifting or health and fitness. All right, so just from the beginning, just to kind of get, like Faith's story out of the way and kind of some of the lessons that she learned throughout that journey. Is there anything you want to ask me, before, I continue to ask you more questions? Anything on your mind,
Yeah. So I know you get this all the time. So, I think that, what makes you qualified? Well, we all know what makes you qualified, right? So, you have a lot of, titles under your belt. But so I know this may be a little bit easy of a question, and I know in some aspect, I know the answer to it, but I'm just going to ask you again. I'm pretty sure everybody knows who you are, your history, but outside of family, the community, like, why powerlifting? Like, why? Like, what inspires you? I'm not going to say motivate you, because I think motivation is kind of like a little thrown out there. It's actually the beginning stages of like getting to where you want, but like, why powerlifting? What inspires you outside of family, the reasons for your family, and the community?
Yeah, so very much like you, I felt like at the beginning of my stages, and different people reach this stage at different times in their life. For you, that was like 8 years ago. For me, it was like 20 years ago. So, at the very beginning, life was, I was like the youngest one in my family. And all my older brothers all lift weights. So it kind of became like a competitive thing. And especially when you're the smallest, all your older brothers and, all their friends and here and there don't really want to hang out with you. They don't want to be with you because you're too small. You might get hurt. You're not strong enough to play sports with them. You're not tough enough to do these things with them. And, when you hear this like year after year after year after year, it kind of puts you in a really shitty mindset, like maybe I am too small or maybe I can't do these things, right? So when I started lifting weights, maybe at first you wanted to look like Ronnie Coleman, you want to work out and, get more muscles, but for me, I think that moment for me was consistently training for like 2 to 3 years from like my middle schools going into my sophomore and junior year in high school when I finally out bench pressed my brother.
Yeah.
That was like one of the biggest milestones. Like I almost would argue like I almost like my mindset like switched and I became more of an adult almost, at that moment where I realized, my entire life I've been telling myself that I was a piece of shit, that my own family, my own parents, everybody else always looked down on me because I'm the little guy, right? And that I can't accomplish anything. And people always had to baby me, hold my hand, and I really hate that, right? And my brother was a complete opposite. He was talented, he looked good, he was tall, he worked hard and all these things. So they always compared me and him together. Mm-hmm. And eventually, when I surpassed him in strength, it was a very self-fulfilling thing because no one was on my side. It was just me versus my brother and everybody else, including my own family, that supported like his philosophy on things. And when I finally surpassed him, it really lets me know like, wow, this guy had everybody backing him up, telling him he's the son, that everybody, is the one that's going to become everything. You know what I mean? He's going to be the shit. He's going to do all these things. And I beat him. Yeah. The one that no one ever expected. And when that beat that, I didn't need my parents. I didn't need my brother. I didn't need anybody else to tell me that I'm good enough for me. I'm good enough for me because I was able to do all of this and beat the guy that was telling me that my life was, a piece of shit. And then all these people supported him. And then from that point on, I think I was like 16 or 17. From that moment on, like my brain just kind of switched. And then powerlifting is just, it's not like a hobby anymore at that moment. I feel like it's something that I always have to do. So like when you think about sleeping, when you think about eating, if you don't sleep, if you don't eat, and you force yourself for days on end to not eat or sleep, eventually you're going to eat or sleep. Yeah. Right? And if you don't, then you're just, lots of bad things are going to happen. But generally, let's just say hypothetically, outside of exceptions, 95% of the people who don't sleep or eat are eventually going to eat, right? And lifting weights has become that for me because it's now like a stigma. Yeah. It allows me to feel confident and be happy with myself when I make small gains. And then even more so when I help other people do the same thing, to see that this is not a journey of I'm stronger than you. This is a journey of you trying to figure out how to accept yourself, how to love yourself, how to become stronger, whether it's building muscle, building strength, building cardio, or just building a little bit healthier lifestyle for yourself where your closest families and members can like follow suit, So then it eventually just leads into like what you're saying. Now it's not just about my personal journey and growth. Now it's like, well, I love all these people as well. All these people affected my life. Yeah. And I know that there's something that I know that they don't know. And there's things that they know that I don't know. But at least on this end, I can help them in this category. I can't fix cars. So maybe you can help me fix my car, but I can fix your body. I can fix like the way that you think about yourself, things like that. So that's what kept me into powerlifting. Yeah,
I think I can totally relate because I think that when you have that milestone and it's kind of like an epiphany and then it just eventually be ingrained into your daily life and as a part of your routine, just like eating and sleeping. So I think that that's what at least it's done for me as well. So
Yeah, and just to add real quick, a lot of people also like ask me this question all the time, like, are you still competing or are you still lifting weights? Because they assume that the competitions or the accolades or the medals is what makes me lift. But I would like to argue it's the opposite. It just so happens that I lift weights that these competitions exist. Now, I proclaimed myself when I was younger, like the Hmong powerlifter. But obviously, if you truly know who I am, you know that I'm not just a lifter. Like I'm almost like a philosopher. I'm like a philanthropist, especially for the Hmong community.
a b-boy.
Yeah, like I'm a b-boy, I'm a father. Like there's so many different aspects of who I am now that I kind of just want to get away from, being called the Hmong powerlifter because there's other Hmong powerlifters too.
Yeah.
But generally, I don't lift weights to compete. I compete because I lift weights. So don't think that the reason why I'm doing this is so I get all this common fame. The common fame came because I liked lifting weights in the first place. So I want people to remember that. Don't use the goal to motivate you to work out because eventually when something hard comes, you're gonna fail, right? Or you're just gonna give up. It's gotta be more in tune, like what I'm saying. Like you lift weights and then you compete. You don't you compete because you lift weights. You don't start lifting weights because you want to become the strongest lifter. Now you can do that too, but I often find that a lot of people who think that way, they tend to break their hearts a lot, and then eventually they just quit lifting altogether because they couldn't reach the pinnacle of what they were trying to do. And I think that when you think about lifting weights and health and fitness as I want to become the best at what I do so I can shit on everybody else, you already lost because you see an end goal to your health and fitness. And as we live our lives, there's never an end goal. You're always going to get older. So then how can we become healthier than that? You're going to get injured. How do we become healthier than that? We're going to get new jobs. How do we become financially healthier than that, right? In every aspect. So
Yeah. I mean, it's because you were already, like lifting weights was something you were already doing. So competing is just a different aspect because you lift weights. So like, I mean, to me, that completely understands. Absolutely. So something I want to highlight a little bit here is gym culture. Going back to, being a little bit more open, having an open conversation and open dialogue as well when it comes down to gym culture. I know with the community, I know what you guys are trying to do, and I think that it's very encouraging, very inspiring, right? So, so just to talk a little bit about it is that, again, when I first began, it was supposed to be a welcoming place, right? So it can be a very unfriendly place, very intimidating, and not so and a place of being judged because again going right it's not very warm or welcoming, but like for example, like one thing that I dislike the most is actually shaming people or like failed videos, right? And so when this is actually supposed to, just in my opinion, it's supposed to be a positive, encouraging environment to be in. And at the end, the end goal for everyone is to be better versions of themselves, right? So, for gym culture, like, what are your thoughts of like, people being shamed, for example, and like failed videos, and what do you think about it? What you like and dislike about it?
Yeah, I mean, I would say like I just dislike them in general, because I feel like think about the person that is videotaping the person that's failing.
Yeah.
So like sometimes I always wonder like how does the person that's videotaping another person failing have so much time that out of their own personal time they want to spend a little bit of time to videotape another person who may be new, people who have never been in the gym before, they want to like attack them because in my mind I think that when you've been in the gym for like maybe a year or two, you have this sense that, okay, I know that I work out now. I know that I'm doing this. So then you're like, now I'm not like everybody else. And I think those people, they take pride in knowing that they aren't like everybody else. And in their minds, they think, oh, since I'm not like everybody else, I think I figured it out. The way that I do life is the best. So when they think that the way that they work out and the things that they do in their life, it's almost like narcissistic, right?
Yeah.
Where they think that everything about what they do and everything that is them is the shit. So if you're not training like them, or if your philosophy is not the same as theirs, because I've had plenty of people who tell me I'm dumb for lifting weight, for lifting heavy, and not for lifting for muscles.
Yeah.
You're
I
like,
mean, I've seen that happen
Yeah.
in person when
Like,
we're training, but
how dumb is it for someone to come up to you and be like, well, I think you're an idiot because you're lifting too heavy and you're not lifting to build muscle. I'm like, well, maybe that's the goal. Maybe that's why I'm working out, to not build muscle. But generally, I think I'm decent anyways. But I really just like those fail videos for that, because you don't know what kind of person that you're stopping, or you don't know other people who've seen what you and him do, what you might cause. And this happens on the Hmong Fitness page a lot, where people used to love posting like fail videos and laugh at all these people who don't know how to work out. And my general question is always, well, what is their reason for working out? Are they brand new? Because if they are brand new, now you're that asshole, right?
Yeah.
And if they're not brand new and they're doing some weird stuff, what if the weird stuff that they're doing is for a job that you have no idea about?
Yeah.
Like I've seen some really skinny guys do like these weird shuffle moves where they'll have like this barbell, or like those little commercial gyms where it's like 20, 30, 40, 50 kind of a curl bar, and they'll do like cheers with it like this while they're like shuffling across like the area.
Yeah.
And people would be like, that looks so funny, that looks so dumb. But I'm looking at it, I'm like, but you can't out EDM that motherfucker. You can't fucking out DDR that dude. That is true. Right?
That is true.
So, when you judge this guy because he looks like an idiot in the gym, I think you're the idiot for trying to prove that other people are idiots, So, when you think about the fail environment or the gym fails and picking on people, I think that's more of a personal thing. And I know that causes a lot of people to not want to be in the gym. Like even me, like when I go to a commercial gym and people don't know what I'm doing, they judge me a lot. Like especially recently, they're like, oh, you're so extra. You got lifting straps around the squat rack. You bring your own carpet. Oh, you're so fucking fancy, right?
Yeah.
And then when they see 500 pounds on the bar, they'll come up and they'll be like, oh man, I thought you were being extra. And then I saw 500 and you did it for 5 reps. They're like, I'm sorry. You know what I mean? Like some people will like the muscular guys who's been lifting for a while, they'll come and they'll apologize by saying like, at first, this is how I thought of you. And again, when you look at other people who are even more brand newer than them, or just been through the gym for a year or two, and they think that they know what they're talking about and they like to pick on me, that is the best. Because now I get to probe their brain to let them know how smart they sound. Because there was a guy in Minnesota where he saw me powerlift and he saw me sumo deadlifting. And he was going around to every other person around the gym and telling them that I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. So I'm out here deadlifting like 475 at the LA Fitness in Minnesota, in Maplewood. And I did like 475 for 5 reps or something like that. And a personal trainer comes up to me and he's like, hey, you know that guy over there? I'm like, nah. Why? And he's like, that guy's been going around the whole gym like shitting on you, right? And I'm like, well, okay, so what do you want me to do? He's like, oh, well, I just want to let you know that, this guy, he's kind of being a little confrontational. So like, if he does come and bother you, just let me know and I'll take care of it, And he's like, he was telling me about how dumb you are, about why you're lifting so heavy that you're going to break your back. Sumo is the dumbest technique for deadlifts. You need a conventional. And personal trainer guy was like, but you're lifting close to 500 and I'm nowhere near there. So I ain't going to come talk to you about, the fact that you don't know what you're talking about, So he comes up to me and I pretty much, I don't want to say I trashed him, but I let him know how stupid he sounds.
Yeah.
And right after that, he just never came and talked to me anymore, But generally, even me, the gym culture, there's a lot of negatives and a lot of positives to going to the gym. And then the question I think is more important is not for me, but for you. if you know that this is the kind of gym culture that you're getting yourself into, how can you change that? How can you be the difference? If you know that this is what you don't like, then just be the opposite, you know?
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I do when I go to the gym.
That's cool. I mean, I think, you know, I think we sometimes forget that, well, we need to remind ourselves and ask ourselves this question. Why am I going in the gym? What is the goal here? So I think that sometimes, you know, like, you know, obviously you will have a know-it-all, or somebody who's going to trash on you, or, you know, talk negatively about you. But I think for us, I know it's hard sometimes, but we have to remind ourselves that why are we in the gym? What is our purpose? So you, by taking a video or a picture of somebody else who's on their phone on a machine, that's not very empowering, and that's not very encouraging. So, I mean, I like to kind of remind people that, you know, focus on you, you know, focus on your purpose. Like, you know, if somebody was being fancy or extra, it doesn't matter, because everybody has their own story, right? And everybody has a purpose for training. So, you know, you don't know this person, and even though they're extra and they might be, you know, for example, walking on hills on the treadmill, you don't know their story. You don't know what they're training for. So what if, you know, this person is wanting to dance more, or walk on the runway, or run on the runway? Whatever the case may be, focus on yourself. And if somebody is extra, as long as it doesn't affect you, you know, put on your headphones and do what you need to do, because at the end of the day, it's all about you, right? So, and what you want, what your goals are. So
yeah, and you know, even a lot of people on the Hmong Fitness page, not just like general people, you know, when you see me bench press, a lot of people think that what I'm doing is stupid, right?
Yeah.
So the question that I always ask people is, okay, teach me how to bench press.
Yeah.
Do you know what most of those people who tell me I don't know how to bench press do? They can't teach me how to bench press. So if you can't teach me how to bench press, and you watch someone bench press and you tell them they don't know how to bench press, but you can't teach me how to bench press, how does that make sense? And I feel like, you know, in the Hmong community, and, you know, to a degree, you know, as you go to the gym culture, there's going to be a lot of people that you meet like that, where people always assume that what they know and what they do is the best. And if you aren't doing what they're doing, then you're the idiot, right? Even though you have your own goals and your own personality in the way that you approach things. And I feel like the important part of this conversation is just you accepting yourself, your limitations, your purposes, and you go in there and you only focus on yourself. When you don't focus on other people, you almost find that you have a more pleasant gym experience, you know?
Right.
But just be ready for it though, you know, because you don't know who you're gonna meet in the gym.
And, you know, honestly, how are you going to knock somebody down for trying, right?
Yeah,
but, you know,
exactly.
Going
the
to the
asshole,
gym, right. So, you know, I think a lot of this is one of the reasons why I also encourage people to, like, you know, to educate themselves more and ask these kind of questions, like, oh, what kind of lifting do you do? Why do you arch? Why do you wear a certain shirt? Why do you, you know, bench like that? Why does your feet look like this? Why do you, what kind of shoes are you wearing? And like, what does this make sense? Like, ask those questions, you know, like people like for you and me, I'm very open, you know, to conversation and asking if it's something that I really want to know. I'm going to ask, because I want to see if it's something that I want will be beneficial for me. Like, for example, stealing your moves on certain type of lifts, or, you know, whatever the case may be, it's going to be beneficial to me, and I love to learn. So,
And even if those people are, let's just say, an idiot, or maybe they're brand new to lifting and they're doing a lift that's going to hurt them, right? Well, let them learn the same way you learn.
yeah.
If they got a question, they'll come ask you if they feel comfortable. And if they don't, eventually they're going to get injured. And there's two things that's going to happen. He's either going to keep doing that and keep getting injured, or he's going to learn from it and he's going to learn good technique, and then he's going to get better himself. But at that point, if that student or if that person is not ready to hear your advice, it doesn't matter what you tell them, you know? So keep those things in mind too. Just remember, other people got other reasons why they do what they do, and you just need to remember why you're in the gym doing what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Any other topics you want to hit?
Yeah. So, you know, like, going back to, you know, obviously that whole stigma of how someone should look like, or how someone should lift weights or exercise or do cardio, you know, I'm obviously not your average like fitness model, you know, but that's not my goal, right? So my goal is to now, as I, you know, learned to live, you know, I think my most important reason why I do what I do is because for mental reasons. It's where, you know, it's a good, you know, one thing I do want to bring up too is like, I think we are all flawed in our own ways,
Yep.
right? So, you know, obviously, it could be health reasons why you are the way you are. It could be being ignorant about your physical, mental health for a long time. Everybody's reasoning is completely different, but I think for us, in terms of everybody's own goals, you know, let's be more encouraging and extending grace, and you know, just kind of give props to people for trying, you know. We're flawed, even for me, you know. Obviously we grew up in, you know, especially, you know, what you brought up, like we learned about like the food groups and exercise in elementary, right?
Yep.
So but then
How to stretch.
right, but you know, life does happen, and we sidetrack from that, you know, because one thing that I do want to bring up too, I am outside of that Hmong stigma where I need to, you know, be educated, have a good job, get married, have babies, right? And I'm outside of that because neither one of those things happened for me, right? So never married, no kids. I do have a job, but you know, when you're focused on that, sometimes you forget about your health, and life does happen. But you know, I understand that, but let's be sincere, let's be encouraging, let's extend grace for people who are trying. And again, going back to how are you going to knock somebody down for trying, right? At least trying to make things right for themselves.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, this would be kind of good to segue into a little bit of what I want to talk about, because I feel like now this isn't just in the Hmong community, but I'm going to speak upon it in the Hmong community because I'm Hmong, right? It's much easier for me to speak about Hmong people than it is about African people. So it's not like I'm trying to say that Hmong people are more important than other races, but I can only speak upon what I know. And if you relate to what I'm saying, if you're like another ethnicity or something like that, then great. I'm including you in this conversation, but I'm only speaking from my own knowledge base, right? And, you know, kind of like what we're saying, you know, a lot of Hmong people, when we think about like health and things like that, right? Like we like to shame people as well, you know? So it's not even just a gym culture thing. It's like the way that we are as a person, we take it to the gym. So a lot of Hmong people like to do that too. You know, they're not even all that, but they like to look at people who are less than them, pick on them, make fun of these guys. So you don't focus your attention on me and what I don't know how to do, you know? And I think a lot of Hmong people in our community does that just in general. Oh, let's talk about this woman and their divorce so people don't focus on me and my husband's divorce, you know? Or let's focus on, you know, all the crazy stuff that's going on over there in California with all these things, not realizing that my family and the way that I'm doing my life is just the same as them, but let's put focus on someone else and never on me, you know? And I think in the Hmong community, because we do that a lot when it comes to shaming and things like that. My question is, you know, as a Hmong woman, understanding the Hmong culture, how do you feel like the culture has affected you, like overall health? You know, from a mental perspective, you know, how does the Hmong culture make you feel as a person? How do they make you feel included? And how did all of these things affect you, kind of before working out and after? You know, so just how the Hmong culture affected you, and then how did the gym life affect the way that now, you know, how that encompasses who you are, you know?
Okay, so I think I might just provide a small little simple answer maybe.
Yeah,
So
that's
I
fine.
think that for the Hmong culture, now granted, I'm still very proud of who I am and what I am, and being Hmong, because, um, I love my family and I love my friends, but I think what the Hmong community, how it affected me is when I started to lift weights, it allowed me to think outside of what the community itself thinks about. So for me, it's what to think about, what not to think about, say or do, right? So kind of like the opposite.
Yeah.
So, what I learned is that not to listen to what other people say. Like I'm just gonna give you an example, like my mom. Why do you lift weights, right? You're gonna break your back one day. You're gonna get old. You're gonna get tired. You're gonna have pains. But who's to say that when it comes down to a 100-pound bag of rice, who's gonna carry it? Who's gonna carry this recliner? Who's gonna carry this table, right?
I'm the one you call.
You know what I'm saying? So like for me, I think that was kind of like an awakening, what not to think. Right.
Yep,
so,
yep,
and
I
what
like
not
that.
to say, whatever. But also in terms of going back to what Meng He did say to me once, they mong bitch you all in the, right?
Yeah.
So then I think, I think we've all, again, all have our own story, our own tragedy, our own trauma. Like my dad, I lost my dad. My mom has health issues, lost my aunt, lost family members. And I think, in that way, it's kind of like, what positive outlet will I need in my life to prevent from all those things from happening? And lifting weights did that for me. And it's still during that. We still obviously still go through struggles, on a daily basis. But I think that's provided me more with a positive outlet for sure. And it inspired me to do better with my life. So.
Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons why I asked this question is, again, just because there's so many things going on in the Hmong community where people are like killing themselves.
Yeah.
People feel like the Hmong culture is so negative towards them that killing themselves or taking their life is better, and how can we prevent that, Another thing too is like all these young kids, right? Like, in the last year or so, I don't know if people have been keeping up, but Two Psycho and Two Psycho Lee and a bunch of these other, very big, I guess, Hmong people in their fields. We made a little video, they made a little music video, and a bunch of us like contributed to all that about why are young Hmong kids at the age of 15, 16 like killing themselves, right? There was probably like 6 or 7 of them that killed themselves in the last 2 or 3 years. Me and Faith personally know someone very close to us that has done that as well. Mm-hmm. So, the question that I like to always ask is like, why is it that the next generation and or some of the people in our community are choosing this, and how does the Hmong community affect us in those decisions? And I often find that lifting weights or finding hobbies that reinforce your mental strength, hardships, right? Overcoming these things, I think it kind of helps us I think outside the box. Yeah. Because I often think that it's us that's killing us. I think that the Hmong community thinks like this, or maybe they really do think like that, honestly. Because some of these people who passed away, that was the reason why they off themselves. Like my husbands or all these people that I know who are supposed to be really close to me all went on the internet and they were bashing me, and now all these people are coming and ask me questions about why'd you do this to your husband or your late husband, or why'd you do this to your late wife and things like that. But we never take accountable for that. It's our fault. How can we save these people from killing themselves? How can we reinforce Hmong women, within the community so they don't feel like, they're just assets to who we are, because there's another situation, I think, in California where, the whole clan was bullying her, saying that she's the one that's stupid and that they have the right to cheat on her. Like their son has the right to cheat on her because of these reasons.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, dude, that's a cult, right? Like, you're telling me that the Hmong OGs over there felt like they can tell their daughter-in-law that their son can cheat on her because of whatever reason. You know, and how does this affect health? You know, like, how does that affect her growing up?
Yeah.
If that's how me and my wife are.
Yeah.
You know, and then they grow up 15, 16-year-old, not understanding who they are, right? Not understanding if I should love my mom or my dad and these things. And then by the time we realize it, some people are not tough enough to handle these situations, you know? So I just find it interesting that, you know, the Hmong culture has affected, you know, everybody in their own way. Like you said, everybody's got their own story. But how can we then overcome these things on a health level so we don't have to rely on other people's acceptance of us? Because it's gotten to the point where if we can't accept ourselves, what is the next step, right?
Yeah.
You know, we hurt ourselves or we hate ourselves to the point where we do very nasty things. And when you do those things, the people that really do care about you, me, for example, because I know what all of these things feel like, and I hate it when I experience these things so often that I know you guys are going through it too. You know, if you're around my age, you know, between 25 to 40, if you're between that age, you and me probably got the same story. We've been to so many funerals. We know so many people who die from diabetes. We know so many people who die from COVID. We know so many people who off themselves, right? We know so many people who disown each other. We know so many people who tabooed or are gay or are single women, single men. And our community bashes on every single one of these things, not realizing that they are also the same thing that they're bashing.
Yeah.
But they just don't want the attention on them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I find that very toxic. And I really hope that, you know, as we learn more about our health and we learn more about our mental health and how our culture is affecting us, that maybe in the future, you know, we won't have to feel the way that we feel.
Yeah.
You, as a Hmong woman, wouldn't have to feel like you have to live up to a certain standard or that you have to get married. A young man, same concept. You know, nowadays, you know, like when you're getting married, your husband and wife can cheat on you. They can do all these crazy things. So, you know, when you're a young man and a young woman, do you want to get married? If you're a Hmong woman, you're like, if I get married the Hmong way, right?
Yeah.
The OGs in the family are going to look at me and in this way, even if I'm right. Because it's always the husbands, right? And then vice versa. You know, if you're a husband, you can't control your wife, or your wife is cheating on you, or you're doing all these things, like, they look down on you. They tell you that you're the son that can't control your wife, and that if she's going to cheat on you or if they're going to do these things, then you deserve it, right?
Yeah.
And as a Hmong person in that negative environment, how do we overcome these things? You know, and I often feel that it's the culture that's killing us, right? Or the people in the culture that is killing us. And we need to think outside the box. How can we think more about the person versus the culture? Because I think a lot of people in the Hmong culture think about the culture more than the loved ones, right? And I like to use my life for that example. There's lots of people in my life where they love other people so much that they forget about their own family.
Yeah.
My dad and these people were so focused on getting accepted by these Vang people who wasn't even their family.
Yeah.
These people straight disowned you 1, 2, 3, multiple times. And yet my dad still wanted to get accepted by them in their culture so he can feel happy about himself, but they couldn't give him that. And then that caused a lot of mental issues for my father and my mom. You know, at one point, the Vang clan here in Georgia told my mom that she is cheating on my dad with religion. So that means my dad has the right to go to Thailand and marry another girl. And I was sitting there in that meeting and I'm like, you guys are justifying my dad's ability to cheat on my mom because she became the Christian that my dad was.
Yeah.
Because my mom was a shaman. So now you marry her into your family and then you force her to become a Christian. And then now that she's a Christian more than the husband, all of a sudden you're going to say that it's okay to cheat on her because the husband is being neglected. Like, you know, why do these, you know, these situations happen within the Hmong culture? And, you know, we brush it. We say things like, it's not a big deal. But but it's not a big deal because I'm fucking James Vang and I'm able to overcome that.
Yeah.
But what about some 16-year-old
Who
ain't James
handle it,
fucking Vang,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Who ain't Faith Tao, who ain't who we are at this age? Because I feel like the middle generation, the people between like 25 to 40, we all have this ingrained in us where we hate ourselves or we feel like we're not, we can't live up to our parents' expectations and we hate ourselves for that, right? But we hold it in. What about the new generation who cannot do this? And I often find that we have to be a resource for them. And like you said, I personally think that lifting weights and being healthy, diet-wise, exercise has helped me overcome these mental issues. And that is also one of the reasons why I'm doing this.
Yeah.
And a lot of people always ask me like, dude, you're not a part of the Hmong culture anymore. Like you hate it. So why do you always come back? Well, it's not that I hate the Hmong culture. I just hate the people that hate me.
Yeah.
If
But
you right.
At the end of the day, you're still who you are.
Yeah.
But, obviously, we also have to stop this toxic thinking, this toxic culture, right? So I think being a part of the reason why I say, be open-minded and extend grace and, just kind of providing that support to all generations to come, right? So, I just being a positive outlet that would help people overcome these things because a lot of just like you said, a lot of people can't, and we all have loved ones where they've taken their own lives and who got really sick and passed away and stuff like that. So I think that being open-minded, providing a positive environment can reinforce somebody's mental state and ability and overcome no matter what situation they come across.
Man, that's excellent. Yeah, so, I guess to kind of slowly, start to end this podcast, that's one of the reasons why, like, folks like me and Meng Her and Mark and some of these admins on the Hmong Fitness page, we try to do what we can because maybe, if you're stuck in your ways, like if you're, beyond your 50s, old men, like what Meng says, right? Because Meng's still lifting weights, Vince and her, these guys are 40 plus and they're still lifting weights and they're still very, very strong. So maybe those people are not lost, but they are the exception. They're probably like 1% of the Hmong population above 50 that still wants to be healthy, right? Everybody else is a diabetic, experience heart attacks, strokes, or about to, right? And then maybe people in our generation, people who are between the ages of 25 to 40, sometimes, because of the way that we grew up, we don't have any hope for ourselves. Like we don't see life beyond that. Or like, when we think about like our health, we're lost. So we never ever think like we can improve our mental strength, our physical strength, because maybe at that point, especially with our parents telling us it's dumb to go to the gym and all these things. But what about the generation after us? If we can cause the new generation to have a better start than we did, in terms of strength training, in terms of having opportunities, having a freaking powerlifting meet at the J4th, right? Allowing people to experience a different form of lifting or a different form of health and see if this is what gives them motivation and helps them grow. And if we can cause everybody that's 24 and under going on to the next stage of their life to understand the things that they're going through, to understand that they're not alone in their journey when the Hmong culture is affecting them, to understand that they're not the only Hmong woman or Hmong man that is struggling and going through these things and having confidence issues. Even the best of us have confidence issues, and we have to learn how to accept ourselves. And I think when we learn to accept ourselves, we can see beyond just, I want to end my life and make everybody who loves me suffer. So if we can be a resource, we can build them from the very beginning. I feel like the people like us in our generation won't have to feel like the way that we do, because that is another reason why I'm motivated to do these kind of podcasts, to do meetups, and just to talk about these nasty experiences that everybody has but nobody wants to talk about because everybody wants to look good in the Hmong culture's eyes. But me, I don't really care. I'm looking out for your health, not your culture's health. So at the end of the day, take it for what it is. I hate people who hate me. and the Hmong culture did not do anything negative to me. So at the end of the day, I want to give back to the culture and to my people in the best way possible. And like try to open people's mind, like maybe the Hmong culture or the people that is pushing this part of the Hmong culture is not a healthy thing. And if you don't think it's a healthy thing, then maybe that's just a religion, or maybe it is a thought process in America that no longer works. And if you are affected by it negatively, then drop it. And like me, I've dropped certain aspects of the Hmong culture, but at the same time, I'm still very involved in the Hmong culture because there's things that I love about it: the clothes, people, the relationships, the food, and all these things that we do. I love that. I just hate it when a Hmong person comes up to me and they say, "I'm going to disown you because of the things that you no longer offer for my clan." And then when you do offer a lot of things a few years later, now they want you to be a part of their family again, not realizing that this is not what a true family is. I'm not family to you because of what I offer. I'm family because I just am. And I want people to realize that health is not about how other people in the culture looks at you. It's about how you are accepted by yourself, and you surround yourself with the people that makes you grow.
Yep.
Anything to add on that?
Any life that you can touch or inspire or change, that's actually our purpose here, right? Is to provide some kind of positive impact on an individual who may be struggling or crying for help in different ways that we could never imagine. But if you want to provide some kind of, change, well, just be the change.